Okay, welcome to the Femme FC Podcast. I have today Dr. Mariah Bullock, who is the clinical and sports psychologist for Seattle Reign FC, where she provides individual and team mental health and mental performance counseling, as well as staff consultation to help optimize player and staff performance and well-being. She also has experience working as a mental performance coach for the Canadian national women's soccer team and has served as an athletic psychologist at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Born in Orange County, California, Dr. Bullock earned a PhD in clinical psychology and is a licensed psychologist. She played professionally for the Reign from 2013 to 15, as though her resume wasn't impressive enough, helping the club secure 2 NWSL shields. Dr. Mariah is a licensed psychologist providing mental health and performance enhancement services to individuals, groups, and teams. She values building strong relationships while incorporating evidence-based practices to help you gain insight, perform at your best, and live a life that is meaningful and purposeful to you. I'm really excited to have Dr. Mariah here to discuss common mental health and performance issues in elite women's soccer. Mariah, thank you so much for being on.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So can you just start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to work in elite women's soccer?
Totally. So, like you mentioned, kind of grew up just playing a ton of sports. Loved sports, any sports that I could get my hands on or my feet on. Played soccer and softball competitively through high school. Decided that I wanted to pursue soccer. So, played at Stanford for 4 years from 2009 to 2013. Won a natty there, went to the Final Four 4 years, had an amazing experience. Majored in psychology in undergrad, and in my very last quarter of school, I took an intro to counseling course that I just absolutely loved and really clicked for me. And that's when I decided that that's something that I wanted to pursue post-sport. So was playing, knew that I wanted to play professionally. When I graduated was the first year of the NWSL, so entered the draft, got drafted to the Boston Breakers for my first season, and then traded to Seattle for my last 2 seasons. So just been a part of women's soccer my entire life. When I decided to retire, I got into psychology, clinical psychology. At the time, every mentor that I spoke to in the psychology field said, there's not really jobs in sports psychology, so just get a really good clinical background, and then if you happen to be able to work with athletes, awesome. Well, the field exploded in the time that I was in grad school, and so I was able to have that solid foundation of mental health counseling and then be able to layer on the mental performance, be able to get experiences with other athletes and student athletes, which eventually led me back to professional women's soccer, just women's soccer in general, which has always been my love. And so to be able to integrate the two passions and identities and purposes it's always been the dream. So living the dream.
Great. And just for context, so everyone listening knows, I first heard of Mariah when I started working for Seattle Reign. And I knew I wanted to get some kind of mental health, mental performance coach on the team. And some of the players had told me about Mariah, and also the GM at the time, Bill, told me about Mariah. And she used to play for us. She's a clinical and a sports psychologist. I was like, wait a second, this exists? This is insane. This is exactly what we need. So Mariah and I got to work together for a year at Seattle Reign, which was amazing. So on that then, Mariah, would you mind just talking a little bit about the intersection of clinical and sports psychology and how mental health and mental performance, that kind of hybrid role that you help serve and what that looks like?
Yes. So for clarity, for people who maybe don't know, we kind of see mental health and mental performance along a spectrum rather than it being categorical and black and white. So on one end, when we have clinical psychology, what we're referring to here is more on the mental illness, rising to the level of a diagnosis. So this is going to be depression, anxiety, trauma, substance use, eating disorders, things like that. And then on the far end of the other mental performance spectrum, this is going to be confidence and goal setting and attention control. And then in the middle, where it's kind of a fusion of both and can get kind of gray, we have things like sleep. We have performance anxiety. We have maybe like managing relationships and communication, where I think a practitioner from either end of the spectrum can probably help. And so I think there's a great strength in being able to do both, so that on the client side, they don't have to have two different people that they're working with. They just have one person who kind of takes care of all of it. And because it can get kind of sticky in the middle, I don't have to be making that decision of whether is this in my realm of competence or do I need to refer out. And so I like to make a pitch for people who are dually trained, although there is great value in both as in and of itself.
And kind of in that gray area or sticky area, which is beneficial, like you were saying, as a single practitioner who can work that entire spectrum. But does it get sticky? And I'm curious to hear your take on, in the various settings you've worked in, collegiate, professional club, and then national team environment, how you are sharing information with the rest of the medical and health and performance staff, and where is it that it's a performance issue that can and should be discussed with the team, or a health issue that maybe is protected health information. But of course, in pro sports, sometimes that stuff does need to be shared. So how do you tread that fine line?
Yes, sharing information is probably the ethically most difficult part of my job. And what I would say is probably the biggest barrier to athletes or student athletes coming to speak with me or with anyone on staff is the worry that information is going to be shared, particularly with the technical staff, and that it's then going to affect their playing time. And so being on the same page about what is shared, how it's shared is so important to being effective in this space. And the way that I approach it is that I have a very clear consent form that I will also go over with them verbally, because sometimes people just sign stuff, don't really read it. So in my first session, I might meet with someone and I'll say, okay, here are the limits of confidentiality. There are not any on mental performance, and that's what makes it really tough. But anything mental health related, that is protected information. What I try to ask for at the minimum is if the athlete is comfortable with me sharing attendance with the rest of the staff, because a lot of times what will happen is staff will be like, hey, this athlete looks kind of off. Like, Mariah, are you seeing them? Or like, does anyone have eyes on them? And so for me to just be able to say, hey, yep, I got them, we're good, is often enough. Okay, now we go into other layers, which is if someone is comfortable with me sharing all the details, okay, and there's a few athletes that are kind of like, yes, I just want it all out on the table. I trust everyone. I want them to understand why my performance looks the way it does or why I'm a little bit off. Okay, no problem. Then in the middle, what I try to explain is, hey, I don't need to share all of the details of everything that we're saying. I think that given what you're describing, let's say performance, because that's where the information sharing is more fluid and flexible. Let's say an athlete is having a hard time with their role. Okay, I hear that a lot. We might be working individually about how they can be accepting and maximizing that role, but there may also be something about how the coach is communicating to them that is making their role unclear. And so I might say, hey, okay, yes, we don't need to go into all of the details, but it would be really helpful for coach to know that. Do you want to share that with them, or do you feel comfortable with me sharing it? And if they want to do it on their own, great, and maybe I coach them through how they can approach that. If they're comfortable with me sharing it, then I might say, Okay, here, this is what I'm thinking that I would say. Are you okay with that? So I'm just trying to get athlete approval as much as possible. So that's what's going on the athlete side. On the staff side, I try to front load this conversation, which is to say, okay, has this come up in the past? What's the information that you want to know? And usually, if we get down to the root of it, what staff want to know is, are they okay? Are they receiving help? And what can I do to help? And so, given that, I can take what went on in the conversation, hopefully getting permission from them, and say, okay, coach, athletic staff, performance staff, what would be really helpful right now, let's say it's an athlete coming back from injury, what would be really helpful right now is providing a little bit of the next few steps and what that looks like so that they have some concrete milestones, but we're keeping it short-term focused rather than 9 months out from now.
So that sounds like from both the athletes and the staff, there needs to be a high level of trust in what you're doing, what your approach is, how you're sharing information. Do you have any, or have you learned along the way any key ways to help building that trust? Is that different with staff versus athletes? And how would you advise a young practitioner, maybe first time working in pro women's soccer, to start doing that?
For the athlete side, I think to build the trust, you have to start a little bit more protected, guarded, and really explicit. Because I think that we earn the trust to say, okay, they came, they shared this vulnerable information, it didn't get spread, I'm good. And then a lot of the work we do is through referral, through teammates being like, oh yeah, I met with that person, they're cool, they're good. And so it's also maybe getting some key stakeholders on the team and building relationships with them to where then they can be your referral, like the check of approval. On the staff side, I think that it's trying to find a common goal and making steps towards that common goal. And if you can maybe consult them in a way that's not individual specific, it may be, okay, whomever, this is how you can help with confidence. This is how you can help an athlete returning from injury. This is how you can help an athlete who's trying to meet certain performance goals in the gym. And then they can see, oh, this person brings value and has information that's useful to me. And then hopefully as the players are getting more comfortable, as the staff just knows you as a person and sees that you have a certain level of expertise, then you can start to sprinkle in, okay, here's some information for this athlete. But I personally err on the side of protect the athletes first, because if you don't and you share too early, then you're toast.
Yeah, absolutely. So pivoting a little bit then, in the work that you've done and are doing, what are some of the most common both mental health challenges and mental performance challenges in pro women's soccer?
Mm-hmm. Mental health wise, I'll start actually by saying that if I look at the breakdown, let's say in a year, of how much am I seeing of mental health versus mental performance, people will ask that sometimes, I'd say it's 80-20 mental performance. I'd say there's just a few athletes in a season who will rise to level of clinical diagnosis. When we are getting to that level, it's typically depression or anxiety. Some people will have ADHD that gets sprinkled in. And then I'd say next is probably disordered eating body image that sometimes rises to the level of eating disorder. On the mental performance side, what I see most is, I'm going to use the umbrella term of performance anxiety. We have very high level athletes who want to do their best. And what comes with that is, how am I being perceived by my teammates or by a coach? There's a lot of I'm wanting more playing time. So like I'm not happy with my role. How can I stay motivated and also keep pushing while maybe accepting the reality? And then I think also, again, because people are so high achieving, there can be some perfectionism in there, as well as being hyper self-critical because we feel like that's what's going to get us better. And so it's working with athletes to effectively evaluate a performance, be able to let mistakes go, learn from them, move on to the next thing.
And so let's say, like, we'll go with performance anxiety, or because, you're saying that one of the more common things is their role on the team. But you kind of already talked about how finding communication methods that are effective can kind of help with that, to gain clarity from coaching staff or just having better communication. Let's go with that. Let's go with the role on the team, because that's a really common one you mentioned. What are some other strategies that players can use who maybe are struggling with their role on the team?
So I like to use performance goals and outcome goals. Okay. The outcome goal is I want to play, or I want to start, or however many minutes that you have. And that may be the only goal. And if that is the only goal and you're not playing, then your season is a failure in your eyes, right? And so what I will help them to see is, okay, yes, of course, we're always striving for this. And also, what are the steps along the way, the process goals that are going to help us to achieve that can be other measures of your success, or that are going to help you to achieve that are more controllable, because you could be doing everything in your power. You could be performing the best that you've ever been performing. But if there is someone else in your position who is outperforming you, or that the coach prefers, or that's a better matchup for whomever you're playing, then you might not play. And that is not in your control. And that's going to be frustrating. So it's about, okay, what are the things I can do in the day to day? What are the things that are going to feel like they're helping me to get better, that are going to help me to feel like I'm contributing to the team, that are going to help me to feel like it will give me a better chance of playing and having the role that I want, that I can do on the day to day. So that could be, okay, right. So I was a holding mid. So that could be, I want to improve the accuracy of my long balls. Or that could be, I want to be better about my communication and organizing us defensively. Or I want to be better at being able to switch the point of attack. All of that, things that give me purpose, that help me to stay motivated, that I can track, that I can see that I'm improving on, that I can say, okay, this is making my time here worthwhile and successful, other than the role piece. So, goals. Yes, like you said, communication. There is a level of acceptance, and finding that balance. It's a little bit different for each player, but finding that balance of, we need to be realistic. It's been, I don't know, half the season of the NWSL. It's been half the season. This is kind of where I've been at. And I'm not going to expect big changes. This is what it is. How can I accept what that is, make the most of it, benefit myself and the team, while also pushing for more?
The goals thing, because that's so empowering for an athlete, and that's such just a good life lesson in general for them to take outside of sport. Is you don't have control over outcomes of things, but are you pleased with how you're controlling the controllables, and owning the process along the way? I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you find that there are differences in some of the primary challenges athletes face, whether it's mental performance or more towards the clinical side of mental health, that differs from rookies versus veterans, different age groups? There's now teenagers in the league, and then there's still, the Lou Barnes and Jess Fishlocks of the world who have been in the league since its inception. So what are some of those differences?
I interestingly see more similarities than differences. And the differences that I do see, oh gosh, it's so variable. Some rookies may come in and just don't know what sports psych is. So they haven't had any experience with it. they're young, their bodies are doing well. They don't have maybe high expectations of playing because they are young and are in this place of, okay, I need to prove myself and kind of work myself into the system and develop. So they're often just kind of happy to be there and maybe don't know all of what Sports Psych can provide. If we actually start to work together, the presenting concerns are similar to what I just said. Um, what I'll see on the veteran side mostly, that's a little bit different, is we may be talking more about leadership, whether that's formal or informal, and how they can be a good leader or mentor for some of the younger players. And then I think a big one is just transition out of sport whenever that time comes. So it's thinking about what's the next step? When do I want to retire? How am I going to mentally, emotionally cope with that process? Those are the main differences I would say. But again, when it comes to presenting concerns, pretty similar.
Do you find any differences between the settings of, Canada national team versus Seattle Reign, so club versus national team environment? Are there any differences in the pressures on the athletes there or the concerns that they have?
Again, so similar, just a different stage. I currently have a youth teen athlete that competes at a high level, and we are working on pre-race nerves. And I have a professional athlete who very recently we were talking about pre-game nerves and how to cope with those. And then internationally, we're at the Olympics and maybe it's your first Olympics. And what are we talking about? We're talking about pre-game nerves. So it the presenting the presenting concern or what to do is very similar, just the level that it's happening at shifts and evolves. And maybe it's the same thing, but now you're doing it at a higher level. And then you're having to revisit or kind of tweak the tools that you had before. So maybe what you did before at the pro level is now not sufficient for the international level. And so it's like, okay, how do we need to shift and adjust this? So very similar things, just a different stage.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah. What I really like about that similarity is I think it's actually super normalizing. So if I'm working with a youth or a pro athlete and they're like, gosh, what's wrong with me? I should be able to do this. I can say, you know what? The people at the highest level struggle with their confidence. The people at the highest level have a hard time like letting go of a poor performance. They're like, oh, great. And then at the international level, it's making it lower stakes, which reduces the pressure. Like pressure feels like pressure at any level is this thing is so important. This thing is do or die. And it allows us to say, hey, remember like that kid who is playing soccer because they love to play soccer. And I think it's important to get into people's motivation as well. But it's like, okay, yes, you may be competing for an Olympic medal. And at the same time, we're playing a soccer game and you know how to play a soccer game. And it can just reduce that level of high stakes, importance, threat, all of that.
Are there other strategies that you use for that kind of performance anxiety or pre-game nerves for athletes? Do your strategies change at all depending on the level or just depending on the individual athlete themselves?
I think it's more dependent on the individual than it is for the level. And I think it also depends on kind of the environment and the resources that you have. So if I'm helping someone with pre-performance anxiety, we're going to always do breath work because it's a physiological response as much as it is a psychological response. Then we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about energy zones. And everyone has an optimal energy zone. Some people perform at their best when they're super chilled out. Some people perform at their best when they're pretty hyped. And most people are kind of in the middle. It's a bell curve. And so we will be looking at, let's say it's a night game. We're going to be looking at the day and we're going to be saying, okay, when do we want to peak? And where do our energy levels need to be in the morning, in the afternoon, pre-game? And then we're using different tools to either up regulate or down regulate throughout the day. Most of the time, people are getting too amped up too soon. They think that they need to be super focused and like just thinking about the game all day. No, no, that's getting people stressed. It's getting people worked up. It's stressing your body and your brain before we even have the game. So some people will call it like the game before the game. We don't need to play a whole game before the game. So so like I said, breath work, some people like meditation. But most of the time, I'm just trying to help them find things that can occupy their mind outside of the game for that time. So people might go to get coffee or go for a walk or play with their dog or spend time with their friends or call home or puzzle, like watch a show. It could be anything that is going to keep your energy level in that optimal zone. It's going to kind of chill you out. And then also, I think what people freak out about and why they don't want to do this is they're like, well, I'm not going to be prepared for the game. So then we have a conversation about, okay, what do you actually need to be prepared? Right? Okay, we've had the week of training. You probably know the game plan. You probably know your role. If you need to review some stuff, okay, no problem. Maybe like the key focal points you want for the game. How long does that usually take? Oh, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes. Oh, cool. So we don't need to spend the entire day thinking about it. We need 10 minutes. And then we're like, hey, where does that 10 minutes best fit? And it's usually, I don't know, on the bus or in the locker room to where we're condensing the time where we're thinking about the game, where we're intense, where we're in the zone, which is going to help us to preserve energy and peak at the right time.
And how long do you I love like the breath work and meditation leading into it. Is that something that you recommend most athletes do maybe like the morning of a game or in the locker room as like before they get ready to go out there, sometime in between? Is it different depending on what energy zone they need to be in?
Yeah, totally different. So I would say I would love for everyone to have like meditation built into their day. And it can be something that helps you to start your day. I have some athletes who on game day will wake up stressed, like they wake up and they know it's game day and so they're more aroused. And so it's like, cool, let's do some breath work right at the start just to downregulate us. And you can use it at any point that you feel yourself starting to creep into that hyper arousal state. So it's just a tool that you have that you can use as needed. Some people prefer it at different points. So if people like routine, then we can say, okay, we're going to do it at this point in the day every day. For people who like a little bit more flexibility, it's let's just be really in tune with our body and recognize when we're starting to get over aroused, and then let's just take 2 minutes.
There are specific meditation types or breathwork exercises that you find yourself suggesting that athletes try? Like, are there a couple go-to ones that you like to use, or any of the apps that have meditation practice or breathing exercises?
Yeah. So the app that I use the most, this is an advertisement now. The app that I use the most is Headspace. Excuse me. I've also used Calm in the past, which I've liked. Both are paid, so if it needs to be something free, then Insight Timer has a lot of free meditations, but I think you need to be a little bit more selective about which ones you want to use on Insight Timer. If I'm guiding someone, I typically, my go-tos are diaphragmatic breathing and just making sure that the exhale is longer than the inhale. And then the timing of that will depend on kind of someone's like natural breathing pattern. Box breathing is something that I will also use. And then in terms of the types of meditations, I like to use guided, especially for beginning meditators. To have something where it's just silence is going to be really, really hard for people rather than, okay, I'm listening to a voice, they're telling me what to do, and I just need to follow the instructions. And and then in terms of what type, other than guided, I like something that's going to focus on the breath. And then if it can also pair progressive muscle relaxation, then that's something that can also help to kind of release tension and allow us to calm ourselves. So those are what I'm typically looking for. And then I might also recommend meditations post game or to help sleep. That's another time, like key time that I would recommend meditation.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is after the game, I remember, being in locker rooms after games, and the energy is usually pretty high, especially after a win. A little different after a loss, but energy can be very high. They were just competing and performing at their peaks
Mm-hmm.
for 90 plus minutes. And so I was going to ask, is that another good time for meditation, relaxation techniques? Are there certain relaxation techniques that are kind of in your go-to toolbox?
Post game is another one that's so hard, especially if it's a late night game. And especially if you're traveling the next day, just life of a pro and international athlete is so hard to 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 maintain well-being. So okay, here's what post game might look like. Right. Okay, let's say we won. We're stoked. We're blasting music in the locker room, whatever. We're probably not down regulating in the locker room. So
Yeah.
we're gonna enjoy it. We're gonna have some fun. You eat your post game meal, and then probably starting at you're interacting with fans, starting at the drive home, whether you're driving yourself or on the bus. That's probably when this process starts. So I'm talking to people about who most of the time, someone will either talk to a teammate or they'll call a family member, a friend, a loved one. And I'm first asking them, who are you calling? What's the purpose of calling them? And what's the effect of that conversation? Because some people will call whomever and then they want to talk about the game. So we're still in the game. We're still like riled up. Is that helpful to you? Is it not? And for different people, it depends. Certain people will kind of be ruminating on the game. So again, one of the individualized pieces is, do you like to rewatch the game? Do you not like to rewatch the game? Is that helpful to you? Is it not helpful to you? Is it more helpful to watch the whole game or just certain clips? Um, do we want to evaluate the performance night of or the next day? And so being able to identify what is most helpful in that. Okay, cool. Then we're probably going to use music. Most people want to use music at some point. We want music that is trying to get us into the emotional state that we want. So we want chill music, not hype music. Um, then let's see, go tos. Got a lot of readers. I feel like women's soccer is on this reading kick, and I'm for it. So, so people will read, but it's important that you read something that you're not totally engrossed in, that's going to keep you up because you just want to keep turning pages. It needs to be
Hmm.
something that's like, okay, either I've read this before or I can put it away. It's kind of boring, whatever. TV, lots of people use TV. Um, I'll talk about kind of sleep hygiene. So it's, what does your room look, feel, sound like? So some people, again, tough if you have a roommate. Again, like we're just not
Hmm.
setting people up for success here.
Yeah.
But um, is it cold? Is it dark? Do you like having a scent? Do you like, some people will take a bath or a shower to kind of like physically decompress? Do you need headphones? Do you need blackout curtains? Whatever it is. And then yes, I'll use a sleep meditation sometimes. So here's the different things. The whole point and the core of it is my mind is probably racing from the game. What are the things that are going to help me to detach from the game, whether that is some type of evaluation or some type of distraction? And then what are things that keep my mind occupied but relaxed? So we don't want things that are going to be too interesting. We want things that just give our brain enough of a focus so that it's not focusing on the game, but everything is towards relaxation. So some people, if people like to fall asleep to watching something, then my recommendation is don't actually be watching the screen, just be listening to it and have it kind of off to the side. Um, some people do music, some people do white noise. I personally really like sleep stories, and different apps will have sleep stories, which is just an adult version of bedtime stories where
Mm-hmm.
someone will read something to you, and then you just kind of drift off to a nice, soothing voice. A podcast, an audiobook, literally anything like that, where it's just the audio part and not like you looking at a screen that can help you to drift off.
I love the sleep stories. There's one on Headspace that I'm obsessed with, and anytime I can't sleep, that's my go-to. So
Same. Which one is it, Nicole?
the sea she's at the seashore. It's like a oh gosh, I forget the name of it now, but yeah, it's like a seashore walk, and you walk down
Yeah,
to
I
the
love that.
shore, and it's like a English like seaside village.
I love that. I love
What's your
it.
go-to?
Mine, I think, is called Shop of Curiosities. I
Oh,
don't
I've
even
listened to
know
that
what
one.
they're talking about in the story, but I think I just really like the wind down at the start, and I like the
Mm.
voice, and I'm like, I could care less what's in this shop. Just talk to me.
So I want to switch gears a little bit because the role that you're in, and of course, athlete health and performance involves multiple stakeholders. It involves an entire team. Hopefully, if a team
Mhm,
is resourced well enough,
mhm.
it's more than just a couple of people on staff. And so, thinking about those other staff members, what are some maybe signs or clues that a strength and conditioning coach, an athletic trainer, sports scientist might notice in an athlete that would cue them to need to bring something up to you?
Short answer is behavior change, either extreme behavior change or sustained behavior change. So, things that you might notice is if they're a little bit more isolated, if their mood seems different, like maybe they're more down or they're more irritable, if there is significant changes in performance that we can't really put our finger on, there may be something going on psychologically, big shifts in weight. And I say big because it's not like a couple pounds. It's like, oh, there's this noticeable change in this person's body, and it's maybe not something that we've been targeting from a performance side. Um, and then maybe they're more disorganized. So they're no showing appointments, or they're canceling late, showing up late to the facility, things like that. All of those might signal that something's going on. And what I say in this is, it I say more extreme or prolonged, because if someone has an off day, it's all right. You don't need to send them to me. But if it's persistent or things are starting to add up, that's when it may be more like warrant more of an assessment.
And what are some do's and don'ts or helpful and not helpful things for other practitioners to say or do if they start noticing something? Like, let's say an athlete goes to the athletic trainer and voices a concern that falls more into your realm, but there they are in that conversation. What is helpful for
Mm-hmm.
them and what's not?
Yes. So I'll first say to everyone, thank you, because you're often the first line of attack. Is that athletes feel really comfortable with you, and so they come and they disclose to you maybe before they disclose to someone in my position. So I would also say relieve some of the pressure if you feel it. You don't have to solve the problem. What is most helpful is for you to just be a safe, warm, empathetic listening ear. So if you have a strong relationship with them, huge. If they're coming to you unprompted, then that's awesome. And then you just need to listen, ask questions, try to like your basic empathy skills.
Mm-hmm.
Ask questions, understand what they're going through, reflect back what they're saying to make sure that you're understanding and for them to feel like you're understanding them, and then to be non-judgmental. So I think sometimes like someone may say something, and um, I don't think maliciously, but sometimes we're just kind of like, that's not that big of a deal, or like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I believe them.
Mm-hmm.
I if you feel that way, that's okay. Just don't let them know that you feel that way. um, and then, yeah, don't feel like you have to solve the problem. Just validate them. And then if it rises to a level of concern, then I would probably say check in with them first to be like, hey, this sounds like there may be a little bit more going on. I think it'd be great if you went and spoke to Mariah or whomever your practitioner is, regardless of whether it's mental health or mental performance. Um, and then asking permission, like, oh, would you be okay if I let them know, or if they checked in, or do you want to check in with them, things like that. Um, I think that it's whenever we do mental health first aid training with staff, something that is a good tool to have in your back pocket as well is feeling comfortable to ask about suicidal ideation. It, some may not know, but it does not increase someone's suicidality to ask them if they are having suicidal thoughts. It is important to ask and can prevent suicide to ask those questions. You don't need to ask someone if they're suicidal if they're telling you that they're having a hard time with their injury. But if they're showing multiple signs that I talked about at the beginning, then it would be okay just to throw that in.
Well, Mariah, thank you so much. You've given so many practical tidbits and insights. I do have 2 rapid fire questions for you. So the first is they're more of a finish the sentence type of rapid fire. So okay. I wish every coach knew this about sport psychology.
So many things. Sorry, that rapid fire is hard because I'm like,
I know there's so many things.
I have a list of 10. The first thing that popped into my head, honestly, was how to give player feedback. Because I think that I just say that just because it happens all the time, and people can do it to varying levels, degrees of expertise, and I hear it from players all the time.
Great, I love
Coach
that.
gave me this feedback and they just sucked at it. The second thing that popped into my head, I'm cheating.
No, that's totally fine.
That popped into my head is I wish that every coach saw our value. I think that we're a field that is starting to emerge as something that's really useful. I wish that every coach understood that we can help put out fires for them, but also increase performance, and that they set aside the time to say, this is not like an extra, this is just a part of what we do.
Yes. It's so important for the coach to be the culture driver, and
yes.
What they make part of the culture, it just makes it so much easier for staff to do their thing and get buy-in. 100% exactly. On that one. Okay, second one is, my favorite thing about working in women's soccer is
women's soccer. It's the people. I think if you ask anyone about their experience, what really makes it is the relationships. And I think that women's soccer has evolved so much from when I played, and I love to see these teenagers coming in and they can make a career out of this now, and that's incredible. And to see how the sport is growing, and I think especially at the Reign has always been a culture of acceptance and openness, and so I love the environment there, especially amongst the players, of come as you are. We love you, even though you're a weirdo, and we're gonna work together rather than it being overly competitive and cutthroat.
Thanks so much, Mariah. Are there any go-to resources, books, other podcasts, blogs, whatever, that you find are helpful for other clinical and sports psychologists who either are or maybe want to work in women's soccer?
Yeah, maybe not necessarily women's soccer specific, but I really like the Confidence Gap book. I think that reshaped the way that I look at confidence, and that's something that a lot of athletes want to be working on. I have some mental performance people that I follow that I really like their work. Steve Magnus, Brad Stolberg, Michael Gervais, I really like Adam Grant's work. He's more in the organizational psych space, but I think all of their work is very research informed, good, practical, isn't gonna be following these like trendy influencer hacks. It's like sustainable growth. So I like to follow them.
Great. And where can anyone who wants to learn more from you get in touch with you or learn from you, or just learn more about you in general?
You can find me on most socials. You can message me on LinkedIn. My professional Instagram is at Dr. Mariah Bullock. My website is Dr. Mariah Bullock, again, drmariahbullock.com. I'll respond to most things if you reach out.
Great. I'll put those links in the show notes. Well, Mariah, thank you so much again. I really
Cool.
appreciated this conversation.
All good. Yeah, that was fun. It was nice to connect again.